on. Man, we're going to try this back the way it was and try to put it directly to Facebook this morning. I've given it more time. I think what the problem is, we do Sunday school, hit share, and then we try to switch it over before it gets done sharing. So what I did, I turned it back over, and we're going to watch this morning. Amen. Galatians chapter number 5. We're going to actually turn to 3 places this morning. We're going to finish up on the fruit of the Spirit. So I'm going to mark a couple of places. Once you go to Galatians chapter number 5, then Proverbs 7, and I'll go back over these, and then 1 John chapter number 2. Galatians chapter 5, we're going to look at verse number 22 again this morning, and we're going to the book of Proverbs chapter 7. And then we're going to come back to 1 John chapter number 2. I'm going to try not to make this long this morning, dealing with very important, and it's the last of the 9 fruit. Remember, there's actually one fruit, 9 aspects of it. If you cannot be filled with the Spirit of God unless you've got all 9. Now, you may be partially filled with the Spirit of God if you've got 8. Or if you've got 6 or 5 or 4 or 3 or 2 or, boy, I'll tell you what, you get down to 1, you're not much filled, all right? But that fruit of the Spirit. Now, we found out there's 3 inward. Love, joy, and peace. Then you've got 3 of them that are outward. That's long-suffering, gentleness, and goodness. Then we looked, we've got faith, meekness, and temperance that are actually upward. So you got to be right inside to be right outside. You got to be right inside and outside to be right upward. You can't have an ought against somebody in church and be right with God. If you're mad at somebody, somebody's hurt your feelings, well, bless your heart. Why don't you just get over it? Some people come in church with feelings on their chips on their shoulder. Oh, I used to be bad. If I saw one of them, boy, I'd walk up. I'd just knock that thing on off and get her on and get her done. Amen. Well, them days are over. But we find that through the Spirit. Now, what I want to deal with this morning is one called temperance. Temperance is a very good one, all right? Now, I hope you're over at Proverbs chapter number 7 and then over to 1 John chapter number 2, because we're going to use those 2 places. The word temperate is only found 3 times, by the way, in your Bible. That's all in the New Testament, not in the Old Testament. Why? Because the farther we get down the road, the more problem we have with this thing called temperance. Back when I was a boy, kids weren't overly chubby. They just weren't. I mean, we ate vegetables out of the garden. We ate meat. We didn't have a lot of desserts. You didn't stay in the house, eat potato chips, candy, and popcorn, and cookies, and ice cream, and all this stuff. My mother had a rule. You go outside and you play. We went out, we ran, we played, we ran, we played. I got a picture of Barbara and I wouldn't show it to you. We were washing the car back in the early to mid-'60s. You could see every rib I had. Boy, I mean, and somebody, I was teasing Annalie a while ago. She's expecting November. She said, yeah, but mine will go away. I said, are you trying to say something to me? Amen. Mine will go away. Amen. That word temperance, I want to deal with it a few minutes. Temperance means to be in control of one's passions. Moderation in action, thought, or feeling. All right? We understand what the word temperate is. You know, the Bible said that we're to be temperate in all things. Temperate in everything. Everything we do, we ought to have some temperance about this. Now, I'm going to deal with it in kind of an unusual fashion this morning. A lot of times people just talk about eating too much and doing this, and I'm going to deal with that a little bit also. But I want to show you something about temperance. One, there is a spiritual side of temperance. I'm going to deal with the physical side, but I'm going to deal with the spiritual side also. If you go over to the book of Proverbs, we're going to look at this thing in just for a moment, but it's an aspect of the fear. It's something that is supposed to be added to our faith. I hope everybody's got that. You know, the Bible said that you're to add to your faith. You get saved, you're supposed to start growing in the Lord. I've got a message I preached years ago, 7 results of not growing in the Lord. We live in a day when a lot of people they've reached a spiritual plane where they're comfortable. And when you get comfortable, you don't want anybody to come along and disturb you or wake you up, all right? You just get into that lackadaisical place of comfort. Boy, you're laying in bed. Sometimes it's hard to go to sleep, isn't it? But I'm going to tell you something else. Sometimes it's hard to get out of the bed. Is that not the most comfortable time? I start eyeing that clock about 1 hour before that alarm goes off. Aggravating this thing, I've got a clock in my head. When I worked in the mines, I rarely ever carried a watch. I knew within 15 minutes what time it was all day long. I've got a clock. When I set the clock up on the dresser, that clock sets up here at the same time, and mine goes off before that one goes off there. So what happens when we get comfortable, we don't want to get up or to wake up. I found out the best way for me to get up is when I open my eyes, let my feet hit the floor. Get up and get going. Say, I don't feel like, if I sit on the side of that bed, I don't want to get up either. Matter of fact, at my age, I'll forget if I'm getting up or going to bed, so I give myself the benefit of the doubt and I lay back down again. I'm glad we don't live in a 2-story house. I meet Barbara halfway up, one of us coming down, the other one going up the stairs. We talk a minute, and then we don't know if he's going up or down, so then we go the opposite direction. Now, comfort. What temperance does, temperance keeps us from getting too comfortable where we are. It means we have to control our passions. Now, how many are with me real quick this morning over in the book of Proverbs? Everybody there? Very important verse. We're going to look at that. I want you to look at verse number 16. Be not righteous over much. How many had seen that before? Be not righteous. Everybody's read through the Bible. And I understand we don't get everything out of the Bible reading through the Bible, but we go through these Proverbs and things a lot of time without reading what it said. Be not righteous over much. Now I want to read the rest of that verse. Neither make thyself over wise. Look at the last part. Why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Now, I want to look at spiritual temperance for a few minutes this morning. First, I want to let you know 2 things that verse is not saying. Be not righteous over much. It doesn't mean that you can be too holy. The Bible said, be ye holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. So it's not talking about being over holy or being too close to God, those saying they're too heavenly minded to be of any earthly good. I've never met that individual. I've found those that are too earthly minded to be of any heavenly good, but not too heavenly minded to be of any earthly good. But he talks about not being righteous over much. But then he introduces another word in there. And that word says, neither make thyself over wise. Now, does God want you wise? Absolutely. Proverbs is all about wisdom. Matter of fact, the Bible said, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God. Said he gives liberally, upbraideth not. God will give you wisdom. What's wisdom? The right application of knowledge. I dealt with that in Sunday school again. That's by my interpretation. To him that knoweth to do good and doeth it. To him it is wisdom. To him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him is foolishness. It becomes sin at that point. So he introduces 2 things, then he uses the word to destroy thyself. So I want to look just a minute this morning at spiritual wisdom. What is spiritual wisdom? Spiritual wisdom doesn't accept sinfulness because God expects that. It does not mean that the outward way we live, our appearance or how we live does not matter. We live in a day when people say, well, just come as you are, do as you please anyway. No, I don't think we ought to do that. This is the Lord's house. We treat it as such. We treat it as God's house. I think it ought to be treated that way. We don't mistreat anybody that doesn't come in and dress us up. We don't do that, folks. We just don't do that. But when I was a boy, you put on your Sunday what? Yeah, your Sunday best. All right, that's just the way it was. Things are going down. So what's happening is there is less importance today on the outside than there ought to be. What's the outside? It is a reflection of the inside. What we are outside should be reflected from the inside of us, all right? It's not telling people what to do or how to do. You know, there's an old saying, live in what? How we live is between us and God. That's where I park that bus. My job is to preach the Word of God. Then I try to live before God the way God wants me to, and I fail at that a lot of times. But then you have an obligation. You live before God according to the Word and the Holy Spirit the way you think you need to, and we let her go right there. Now, why spiritual temperance? Did you know pastors can get off base? I've seen some of them just hobby horses. They get on that hobby horse. It don't matter if they're preaching on heaven. They're eventually going to get down to smoking a cigarette or wherever they want to go with that thing. They're going to park the bus right there for a while. We call that running rabbits, but it's also called a hobby horse. Did you know churches can get off? I've known churches that just get too strict that, hey, nobody could come to church there. I'm not going to name one. It's not in South Carolina, but somebody may be knowledgeable about that church. So I'm not even going to give the name of that church. But they wouldn't let anybody come into the church that wasn't dressed right, even if they were visitors. They prided themselves on that. I'm talking about spiritual temperance. What's he talking about? He's talking about lest you destroy yourself. Be not righteous over much. What's he talking about? He's talking about a holier than thou type thing. Now, I want to deal just for a moment this morning with Phariseeism. Anybody ever heard that word? I've seen churches that get pharisaical. Now, I'm not talking about straight preaching. Some people call straight preaching pharisaical. It's not. If you're preaching right from the Bible, you're right on line and everything's fine. But what happens is the Pharisees took care of the outward at the expense of the inward. But what they did, they looked down on other people that didn't meet the way they thought they ought to be. Called Phariseeism. One thing we want to do is have spiritual temperance. Hey, you be holy, for the Lord your God is holy. You need to be that. The outside is important. I know they go back to 1 Samuel, I think chapter number 16, where the Lord, man looketh upon the outward appearance, but the Lord upon the heart. Listen, the Lord knows something about the outward appearance too. That's why he put Romans 12, 1 through 3. Now, did you hear what I said? Not 1 through 2. Everybody likes to quote 1 and 2, but they do it at the expense of 3. Let me turn over real quick. If you want to turn to Romans real quick. We're not coming back to Proverbs. We're going, but Romans, once you look real quick at Romans chapter number 12, and I want to pull something out that I think it'll help you. We're just trying to help people this morning. I didn't have it marked, so I'm going to turn over to it just like you turn over to it, and we'll be good. Romans chapter 12, 1 and 2, everybody's familiar. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, what's he want us to do? He wants us to grow in the Lord. But look at verse number 3. Nobody ever reads this verse 4. You see that word 4? You know what that is? That ties 3 with 1 and 2. Let's read verse number 3. For I say through the grace given unto me to every man that is among you. Now he's writing to everybody. Not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. Now, we're not going to Romans chapter 14. Friend, he deals with that. One man esteems one day more than another one doesn't esteem it. One will eat, one won't eat. You've always got people always telling you what they don't do and what they do. You ever hear them? They need to live what they believe. But when they start telling you, I've had young preachers come up to me and boy, well, I don't do this, and I don't do that, and I don't do this, and I don't do that. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, that's between you and God. Not really my business, all right? Not as long as it doesn't interfere with something in this pulpit. If it interferes with this pulpit, then we got a problem there that we're going to correct at that time. But at the same time, I'm talking about spiritual temperance. You know, you can get too far to the right or you can get too far to the left spiritually, and what happens is you normally end up in doctrinal error someplace. I've known men so far to the right about the Bible. I mean, boy, they just hammer and pound the Word of God, but then you see things in their life that they just don't match up with the Word of God. And I'm thinking, you're so far to the right that you have no centrist about you. Now, I'm not talking about compromise, but you need to understand again, the Bible verses are parameters that keep us walking straight. You understand that? Every commandment of God is like a pew. These pews, you're sitting there, but it shows me the quickest, easiest, and safest path to get out of here if you don't like what I preached. You ever notice I ask somebody to close in prayer and then I run to the door? There's a reason for that, because I can tell by your expression when you come out of that pew exactly what you think about what I preached. So it gives me an easy out going that way. Spiritual temperance. You know, if we're to be temperate in all things, we've got to be temperate with our relationship with God. We've got to have a right perspective spiritually. What is that right perspective? That right perspective is that we don't think or commend ourselves. Everything's of God. Is that not right? Isn't that a blessing? Everything's of God. If anything, I love that song, To God Be the Glory. Every now and then we sing that here at church. I love that song. To God be the glory, great things He hath done. Do you hear what it says? Listen, if there's any good in me or you this morning, God put it there. In me, in my flesh, what? Dwelleth no good thing. The Apostle Paul, I love the honesty of the Bible. People say, why do you believe that's a Bible? Because it is brutally honest about who and what we are. It tells us who and what we are. This Bible will eat us up at times because we're human, we're imperfect. It is spiritual and it is perfect this morning. The Word of God says what it means what it says. So we need spiritual temperance. You get as close to God as you can get. But you need to understand that your life is a very personal thing with God. Now, let me say this. We also get that thinking, well, my life is my business and it's none of yours. The Bible said, no man liveth unto himself and no man dieth unto himself. I want to tell you something. My life needs to be inspected by you every day. We first came here, one of the things they had, we threw the Constitution out. I tried to redo that thing, and I thought that's a piece of garbage. So what we did 37 years ago, we voted on the King James Bible as the Constitution of the church. Isn't that a blessing? You want to know what our Constitution is? Here it is. But it had a little thing in there that every year in November, the church needed to inspect the ministry of the pastor to vote to see if he got to stay another year or not. I got to thinking, that's a good way to run preachers off. You are to inspect my life every day, every week, every month of every year. That doesn't mean I'm perfect, but you understand what I'm saying. We need to live in such a way that we understand that it is God that works in our life to make us what we are. You know, the Bible said God gives to every man the measure of faith. That's enough to get saved. But then we find there's different measures of faith to live. God doesn't call everybody to stand here. Talking about going home. Listen, 37 and a half years ago, God told us to leave our families behind. Got to thinking this morning, my dad lived 5 years after we left. We left in 1983. Dad died in November of 88. Got thinking about Mom. Mom lived 22 years later. I was thinking this morning, not that I was looking back to go back, but I was just thinking, we missed the last 22 years of my mother's life. We missed a long time farther with her mom's life. But I thank God for that. God did something in our hearts. He doesn't call you to do that. I don't know if you've left all before. I mean, just pull up. Been parked in that place virtually all your life. All your family's there, everything you've ever known. Right there in one county, one small county in western Kentucky. And then all of a sudden God says, now, I want you to take your family, thine only family, and I want you to take them to a place and offer them as a sacrifice, a burnt offering to God. And what happened was God just plucked us up out of that place and transplanted us. God doesn't do that to everybody. So we find different measures of faith because there's different ways that we're used. But the first thing I want to say is keep your spiritual life temperate, all right? Be not righteous overmuch. That means to think more of yourself than you need to think of yourself. We do not ever want a Pharisaical church. You don't want that, folks. Now, let's go over to the New Testament. Book of 1 John chapter number 2. I wanted to drive that point home because I believe a lot of times we take all of the temperance and we add all of that temperance onto the physical part of our lives and pay no attention to our spiritual part, which I think is just as important, if not more important. Now, 1 John. I didn't turn to it either. I've got it written down here, but I want to catch up to you over here. When you get down to chapter number 2, verse number 15, very familiar to you and I. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. Now, I just want to stop with that. He talks about the love of God. I don't want to deal with that this morning. I'm dealing with temperance. One, we need to be in control of our spiritual passion. Keeping our relationship on spot with God. Everybody got that? Most important thing you'll do. Spend time with God. Be right with God. Let God work in your heart. The second is a spiritual temperance. I read out of 1 Corinthians chapter 9. I've got this down. Paul said, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest by any means when I preach to others, I myself should be a castaway. It means to be put on a shelf, so to speak, to be disapproved of God. So we've got spiritual temper, so let's look at physical. We've got to learn to control our passions. If you look again in 1 John number 16, he said, for all that is in the world, and he deals with a word called lust. What is lust? Lust is something that we desire to have, but here it's used in an inordinate way, all right? It's an inordinate desire for something or to desire something too much. So as we've got spiritual temperance, we've got to have physical temperance. One, we've got to learn to control our passions on this earth. I want everything. I saw a lady 2 or 3 years ago in Walmart, had a sweatshirt on. How many like those Christmas sweatshirts? And it said, Dear Santa, I want it all. Amen. I want every bit of it. Amen. I want everything I can get all the time. You know, Christmas was always kind of disappointing to us kids, and in a way, we got one good toy. We love Christmas and the season. Most time we got underwear and socks. How many of you older people got that? Santa Claus was CEO of Fruit of the Loom. All right, that's what didn't have all these other ones, Hanes and all this that I know of. Everything was Fruit of the Loom, friend. And I remember them bags. They had 3, 4, 5, 6 pair of underwear. I'm a kid. I don't care if I'm wearing them or not. I want a bicycle. I want a gun. I want something else for Christmas. All right, control of our passions. What has happened in the world that we live in is there is so much to be had. You know what missionaries do when they come back from 4 years on the field? I know exactly what they do. They walk around Walmart. Huh? Yeah, Annalie's poking at Stephen back there. Huh? Walk around Walmart. Go to Big Lots. Go to all these places. Go to Sears. Well, you can't go there anymore. You can go to Lowe's and buy Craftsman. All right, they got them all their stuff on sale at Lowe's. But just walking around, I like to go to Harbor Freight. Not great quality, but tools, gadgets. If you need a tool for one time, friend, go to Harbor Freight or Tool World. You can go in there, buy one, to do anything that needs to be done one time. Now, if I'm going to do it professionally, then I'm going to get a DeWalt or I'm going to get something else in that area. But I don't normally buy DeWalt. I like to go to Tool World. I get refurbished saws, refurbished table saws. I get these things that are factory rebuilt, and, they've got a lifetime warranty. They're warranted for as long as they live, and if they die, that's the end of their life. They're not warranted hardly until you get out. But I'm talking about our passions. What happens is we've got so much out here that is not only out there, it is financially available to us. It gets worse, young people, when you get older. Do you don't know that? Young people having kids, they walk a tight line financially. I know what it is to have kids in the house, mama staying at home raising the kids, me working. Listen, I didn't have new trucks, I didn't have new boats, I didn't have all these toys. I used to have an 8-foot John boat, and I took the spare tire out of the back of my car, shoved that John boat in, put the spare tire in it to keep the boat from coming out, tied it down. When I got to the lake, I had a 3-speed Shakespeare trolling motor. I had to take the battery out of my car to run my trolling motor, and if you ran that battery down, you had to get somebody to jump you off to get home. That's the way we were. I understand, but you get a little older now. You can go out and buy some things. You have no kids, you have money. You have kids, you have no money. That kind of works. And by the way, if you got your kids at home, you ought to thank God for them. I know a few of you trying to throw them out, but wait until they get in kindergarten anyway. But I'm talking about temperance. Now, let me deal very quickly. We must control our passion for possessions, okay? There's a danger to them. There's a destruction that goes with them, and there's a deception that they own. You will never be happy with anything you can buy. You buy a brand new car and smell that leather, and now 7 years payment? Oh, I can't imagine. Listen, when I was a boy, you didn't pay 7 years to pay your house off. We paid $54,500 for our home and property out there. People are driving $80,000 pickup trucks. It's crazy out there. They say, hey, you know what'll get you over car fever? You go look at the price. I got my old truck the other day. I need to clean it up. It used to be white. Now it's a green. It's been sitting out under the woods, and I need to get all the moss off of it, everything. So what I do, I take Comet and one of these sponges, and I just go out there and sponge that thing white, boy, and wash it back off again. But you know what? It does everything I ask it to do. everything. Possessions. We must control our passion for pleasures. Pleasures. Now, you can not only buy, you can go. When I was a kid, you couldn't go anywhere. I didn't know anybody lived outside of Hopkins in Christian County in Kentucky. You know, we didn't get a lot of news. That's a good thing. Somebody talk about coronavirus. We ain't got no coronavirus around here. Everybody dying of a real bad cold. You know, they don't know nothing about it. You know, they got people all scared to death with this thing. Everybody now is run to get checked for coronavirus. Let me tell you, probably 90% of you have already had it. You say, well, I didn't have it. Well, let me ask you, when you were sick, did you get checked for it? You know why the spike, right? The spike is because they're testing everybody in the world out here to find out that they've had it. That's why that the death rate has dropped by over 80%, which brings COVID-19 down to about the same death rate per infection as the flu. It's all going up. We were raised, we didn't go anywhere. For us to go, my granddaddy lived in Richmond, Virginia. You know what that meant? We had to go across the mountains, the Smoky Mountains, on them roads where you could read your license plate. I'd get so sick. I used to get car sick when I was a kid. I still get car sick in the back seat sometimes. I've got to be real careful. If you get to going around them roads, I start to, ooh. Huh? We couldn't go anywhere. I remember going to Florida. We'd go every 5, 6, 7 years to visit down there. Boy, it was a trip going to Florida. 2-lane roads, no 4-lane highways anywhere. Go down, you could pull your car down to the water. We'd park 2 cars, put a blanket between the doors, close them doors, and have it shaded in between those 2 cars, go right down to the beach. Listen, that was a trip and a half to make that. Now, boy, we're going to get on I-40 tomorrow, and hey, in 8 hours, we will have driven 500 miles in 8 hours, and we'll be at destination. Pleasure can become your master. You know, people are lovers of pleasure more than we're lovers of God. Worldly pleasure can be very short-lived. Then we've got to control our passion for power or position. Everything today is advancement, up the ladder. Let me tell you something, we still need welders in our nation. You know, they're pushing this thing, everybody needs a college education to dig a ditch with a shovel. Now, I know they always say now you'll never get rich by digging a ditch, but when I go by and they got shovels, I see one man in the hole shoveling and 5 leaning on shovels. So it's not a bad gig. All right. Power. Do you know why these people that are multi-millions and billionaires are running for highest offices in the land? It's not about money, folks. It's all about power. They want position. They want power. You've got to be careful with that. You know, sometimes you need to learn to be content with such things as you have. It's not bad to let somebody else suffer. I learned that the hard way. I worked in the mines. I worked an hourly wage. I made a good wage. I became a fire boss, which I had mine foreman papers. They paid me 2 hours overtime every day for not working them. And I made the seals, walked the air courses back in the mines, made sure everything was up to snuff, had a real good job. And one day they came up and said, hey, how would you like to be a face boss? Lost my insurance. UMWA, them doctors have been using you. When I went company, I was no longer UMWA. I didn't have their 100% medication, eye doctor care. Everything was absolutely free with UMWA. My wife took one of our boys to the doctor, and they said no charge. And she said, my husband's not UMWA. He's with the company. And they popped her then. But where they charged $20 for an office visit for you, though, they charged $30 to $40 for UMWA. But I found out something. There was nothing wrong with running a piece of equipment in the mines. I could leave it at home and punch out and go to the house. Now, spiritual temperance, we need it. Physical. It takes two things. We're going to cover them in less than 5 minutes. One, there's got to be a self-crucifixion. How do you get temperate in all things? You've got to crucify yourself. Because our flesh desires. I hope you understand that. Spiritually, we want... Boy, preachers are the worst in the world. I just pick on them. They want to be somebody and be noticed. Somebody told me years ago, said Temple Baptist Church would be a good stepping stone for the ministry. I love what my pastor told me years ago. He said, you stay where God puts you and build a church. Not the biggest church in the world, just build a church. Just do something for God where you planted. Amen. Preachers are the worst in the world. They got all these titles out, right? Reverend, Doctor, got all they put all this stuff on, their name. The greatest title, the greatest name that I have ever known is pastor or preacher. I like that. Amen. Just pray. Went down to preach for Earl Green one time. You can scold him when he comes next week. I went down there. I was going to have to preach for him. Barbara and I went to Anderson, came by his church on the Anderson Belton Highway, and up on the sign it said, Dr. David Johnston. That was before I ever earned my doctorate. You remember that? Oh, doctor. I said, woo, ha, ha. We're going to save a lot of money now. Amen. Already got that thing. Amen. You don't have to be somebody. Crucify yourself. Your flesh is desperately wicked. Your heart is deceitful above all things. Second thing, you got to learn to be content. One thing Paul said, he said, for I have learned. I want you to learn something as a church. I'm not against having new things. I'm not preaching against you owning a $80,000 truck. Shame on you. No, as long as you're paying for it and I ain't, we're good to go. Amen. I'll never. Hey, you know what I found out about them $80,000 trucks? I found out one thing. Me and Barbara got to get a step ladder to get up in them. They don't put them down here. They want you, the wheels up there. You look up there. Used to, that was the way it was with tractor trailers. You ever pull up sign of a tractor trailer and there's that 22.5 sitting up there beside of you. That's a big tire sitting up there beside of you. Now you pull up there and they got steps up them and they got everything else. And I'm not against that. But never let your passions overload your moderation. I'm going to tell you young people something. You can get in more depth in 5 minutes than you can get out of in a lifetime. Do you hear what I'm saying? And what it'll do is keep you from doing the things that matter. You won't have enough money to go to McDonald's and get something off of the dollar menu without putting it on a credit card. You young people stay out of debt. I like what Joe Carter, Joe's not here right now. Linda's probably listening, so she's good at this. They had to eat on a cardboard box for a table and sleep on a mattress on the floor because Joe wouldn't buy anything until he had the money to pay for it. Ain't that right, Miss Linda? It was a long time before she got furniture in her living room. Huh? One, there needs to be a self-crucifixion. Then we've got to learn as God's children contentment. And that's something you've got to learn. Be content with such things as you have. Nevertheless, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Amen. Temperance. Spiritual temperance between God and men. Be right with God as you can get, but don't ever be a Pharisee. Don't ever look down your nose at somebody else who does not think the way you do, because you may not be the one that's thinking right. You go to Romans chapter 14, the weaker one was the one that said you can't do this and you can't do that. That was the weaker brethren. Sometimes it's that way. Spiritual temperance and then physical temperance. Amen. Let's stand this moment. We're going to have an invitation. If you need to come this morning, you come. Temperance before God.